Hey, I'm Vivian. Welcome to my channel. I want to discuss the judge not verse in the Bible and how often it's used and abused and misunderstood, and not even someplace, even within the church, it's inaccurately quoted as judge not. That's the verse. The following verse says, "Judge for the measure you judge meet, then that would be judged unto you." In other words, the same measuring stick, scales, whatever you want to call it, standards that you use on someone else is going to be used on you. It doesn't mean don't ever judge. You have to judge. We judge. And anyone who says, "I'm not judging," chances are they were, and they just got guilty and they're trying to backpedal some. There's nothing wrong with judging. The problem with judging is it's rare that we know the whole thing. We can see a situation. You know, there's that story, I think it's in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. 7 Highly Effective Habits of Stephen Covey's book, where he talks about a man getting on the bus with 3 really out of control kids. And people get really upset with him until finally somebody says something to him about, "Can't you get your kids under control?" And the man just goes, "We just left the hospital. Their mother just died. And he can't cope." Everybody, it's like, then they were helping, with the kids. Instead of being angry, they were like, "Oh my God, they just lost their mother." You don't know, but if no one had said anything, people left that bus going, "What an awful family. What an awful father. Those kids are terrible." When there's a great video about situations, and I'll link that. It's hilarious because if you walk in, it's like, but it's not what it looked like, but it does look like what you think it is because you didn't see the whole thing. And I think that's what the whole that's where we mess up. And if you have someone in your life who has lied to you over and over, and they finally tell you the truth, and you thought they were lying again because that's, they cried wolf enough times, you've learned, that's not your bad. In fact, you should have, that whole fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. 3, what is it when you get 4 or 5, a dozen times that you've allowed this person to do that? All because you don't want to be judgmental. We are all given a brain to use. Some of us use it better than others. Sorry, that's the truth. Come on, we all know people that aren't making good choices. Why? Should you walk down a dark alley in a iffy part of the city or town or area you're in? Should you walk down that dark alley because you don't want to act judgmental? I've told my kids, if something comes up, no matter how ridiculous you feel and how you really can't explain, if something says this is a dangerous situation, get away, whatever, some red flag comes popping up in your subconscious or something, listen to it no matter how ridiculous you may feel and get yourself someplace safe. Don't try to figure it out. Don't try to go, "I'm just being too, ridiculous," or "I'm being silly." Don't talk yourself out of it. Something is telling you, get out of there. Listen to it. We're supposed to judge. The problem is we rarely have the whole information, all the information we need to properly judge. Another example I want to give, obviously, I'm overweight, I'm fat. But I can look at someone who's fatter and go, "What's wrong with her? How do I know she doesn't have health problems? How do I know that her struggle is even harder than mine?" I don't, unless I talk to her. And even then, it would be wrong for me to condemn her, because that's not going to help her situation. I don't need to add on to her stress. I need to be a blessing to her. I need to help her, if she wants to help. Some people are not ready for it. They don't want to they don't want to listen to me talk about intermittent fasting because, I mean, look, I'm not that skinny chick, you know, so what good is that going to do them? Got to be careful in that whole judge, you know, you gotta have that. Somebody living in an alternate lifestyle recently was saying something, you know, it's like, yeah, you know, that's what they're doing. I was like, look at me, I'm fat. The same verse that talks about a lot of other things also talks about gluttony. I love food. That's gluttony. I will eat. If it's in front of me, I will eat it. Right now, this is calling. It's almost 2 o'clock. I can break my fast with a chocolate bar. No wonder I'm not losing weight. Oddly enough, the days I have chocolate, the next day I'm actually lower than days I don't. So, whatever. I don't know what's going on with that. We'll figure it. I'm trying to figure things out. But I see so much, and a lot of my friends on Facebook are Christians, and they'll post some things that are very anti-whatever this and anti-whatever that. And I was like, where's the love? Jesus made it very simple. By the love, you know my disciples by the love they show one another. Now, does that mean disciples showing love to other disciples? Or to everybody? Or to potential disciples? Or whether we know it or not, they may become disciples. So I just to cover that base, I was like, okay, I need to show love to everybody. Even those that are the most unlovable. And I've got some of those people in my life too. And it's not easy. Sometimes I can only manage being kind. And that's where I'm at. And God's dealing with me to get me a little further along on that. And I judge, you know, people come up, oh gosh. We were counseling one young man who wanted to get back with his wife. And because of the situation my husband and I went through, he was kind of directed toward us, to me and my husband, not just me. And there were some things that came up, and he was talking about he would die for his wife. He would walk across, you know, desert. You know, he was like all this stuff, and I said, "Have you ever done the dishes for her?" Because I knew exactly. It's like, no, that's her job. Seriously, you just said all that, and you won't even, you know, and yeah, I was because I judged him, and I knew exactly. I knew his answer, you know, when I asked that. I knew what I was hitting. But I was trying to get him to see that, don't you see? This is why, you know, she's not expecting you to die for her. She needs some help. She has little ones, and she was exhausted, and you were adding to the stress, and she couldn't take it. I don't mince words. I'm still pretty blunt, even though I try not to be as harsh with my words. I try to gentle it down, and I don't do that. Bless her heart, bless his heart. I mean, that's really, and a lot of times, not always. A lot of times, it's Southern for "you're an idiot." Bless your heart. Now, if you're sick and someone says that, they're like, okay, they really say, you know, they want you to get better. But a lot of times when you're talking about a situation you put yourself into, oh, bless your heart. I think that's hilarious. But the whole judge not, it's about judging wisely. And if I say, well, so-and-so is lazy, her house is a wreck. My house, this is why I got this, because everything there's no visually uncluttered space in my house for me to, except for that window in here, this is it. And I'm working on that. The kitchen's clean, food's clean, because that's again, my idol. I got to be careful of that. But it's like, that's also health-wise. I don't want to make anyone sick cooking anything in my kitchen, cooking something and contaminating. And I teach that with my cooking lessons about food safety. So, have you been told to not judge? That's not Christian. That is totally wrong. Totally, totally wrong. We're supposed to judge. We're supposed to judge it in love and wisdom and knowledge. You don't, unless you know the whole situation, you can't just assume people aren't paying their bills because they're out partying. Something could have happened. And when we had our well went out, and our next door neighbor came over, and we had the well fixed within a week. And she was like, we could have never afford to do something like that. If our well went out, we couldn't fix it. We don't have the money. And she's looking at us, and she's always kind of saying something like, we're rich. We're living next door to each other in mobile homes. And I'm going, well, you realize we don't smoke. She's over there. Cigarettes are not cheap. I know what she did on the weekends. She wasn't saving money. And I was like, we rarely went out to eat. We were, very tight. We were very frugal. And we squirreled away stuff for just something like that, the well going out. And while she was looking at us like, it's some magic situation, I was trying to teach her, because nobody taught her to save for a rainy day. She couldn't, that was beyond her ability. She was not good at making good choices. And she was one of those that was judge not, don't judge me. I was like, wait a minute. We're going to judge. You're judging me. You're looking at me going, from appearances, from my words. And hopefully I end up more on the positive than the negative side. But as much as I try to be more on the positive side, different people, sometimes we judge because of our history. And I was talking about how meeting someone that reminded me of someone who really did me wrong. And I didn't like this new person who never did anything, good or bad, for me or to me. But why did I have this immediate dislike of this person? And it took me a bit to realize, oh, she reminds me of so-and-so. And it's not her fault. It's not just because she looks and some of the mannerisms, it's like, that's not so-and-so. And I was talking about that. And this other lady's like, light bulb. Oh my God, that's why I don't like this other person. She reminds me. How we judge, we need to step back and think. Sometimes we're not given the time to think about it, but it's important to get good at judging ourselves, our own motivations, our own intentions. I've got on for 20 years, over 20 years, I have this little mirror that says the smallest good deed is better than the grandest of intentions. People say intentions matter. It's what you actually do, what you actually manage that matters more, really. It doesn't, your intentions could have been really good. I've seen situations where someone's trying to do something good for the other person, but the other person, it didn't mean anything to them. And the person giving got really upset. Well, what was the purpose of you giving? You just wanted to be fawned on. You wanted something in return. It wasn't about giving something to that person. It was about getting something in return that you were expecting. And the other person, they didn't know what you were expecting. They're just like, no, I don't like that. That's not what I wanted. Birthday gift, Christmas, whatever. It's like, and that kind of stuff happens. The 5 love languages, check it out. I'll put a link to the book giveaway. And that will help you with that situation, showing love, getting love. But a new cup. We're supposed to judge, but like I said, in love, or at least kindness, and get as much information before you condemn. And we shouldn't be working on. We need to be careful about condemning anybody. Okay, so what if the person is a drug abuser? Condemning them for that does not change them, does it? Maybe you need to change you. If you have a loved one that's abusing drugs, go to Al-Anon. Learn to cope with them. Learn that when they're using, that is not your loved one. That's a stranger. Honestly, that's I ended up going to Al-Anon because of a family member I cared about, and we're a family of enablers. We don't talk about it, hide it, cover it up, do whatever it needs, get that person through the day. And I stepped out of that, and then I became the black sheep because I didn't play into the family dynamics. So it's not always easy when you start going, wait a minute, this isn't working, so you got to do something different. And doing different is always difficult and sometimes even painful emotionally, physically. It puts you out there. And especially when you're no longer doing what everyone's used to you doing, you got to judge these situations and go, well, doing it the other way never worked. It just kept you in that cycle. So now when you stepped out of the cycle and everyone's trying to, wait a minute, they got to change too because you're no longer feeding in the same manner that they're feeding, then you do that. Judgment, so important. And no matter how bad someone is at making judgment calls, making decisions, choices, they can always learn if they want to. You can't make anyone else learn. If you're watching this is something you wanted to hear about. But to make, hey, watch this or judge not as, inaccurately used. Until someone's ready to learn that, they're not going to take it. But you can take it and do better. And that's what I hope for everybody. And the whole judge not thing comes up so often in real life and on Facebook and on YouTube, and I see it online everywhere. And it's not the way it's used. It's not correctly. It's definitely taken out of context. The Bible, if you take anything said in the Bible, you can find every sort of heinous deed and activity supposedly condoned per the Bible if it's not in context. Someone can quote something to you and justify stealing, justify lying, justify cheating, justify all sorts of things from the Bible by taking it out of context. And this is one that's really often used, and I think a lot of people have become more sheep than thinkers, followers. They rather someone tell them what to think than to actually do the work themselves to figure it out. So I hope this helped clarify, maybe too much. Let me know what you think. Was it too much? Judge me. I'm asking you to. The people that has been the dearest in my life were blunt and honest about something I was doing wrong. I may not have liked it at that moment. I may have tried to deny it at that moment, but I've always gone back and said, you were right, I'm sorry, you really helped me with that. I didn't really, whatever that situation and what came from it, being honest with them and letting them know that I appreciate that. The one person that says, Vivian, you complained about this a few months ago, why hadn't you fixed it? Oops. Yeah, that's kind of important, because sometimes I fall into that too. And if someone who really loves me and cares, and it was said with just honesty, there was no condemnation in that. It was just, fix it. You're intelligent. Why are you still complaining about it? Absolutely right. So, have you been told you were judgmental? Are you? Do you think it's right or wrong? Are you good at judging? Have you been wrong and not been able to say it? So, anyway, be a blessing and be blessed.